Hello, AP Gov fans. Let's talk about bureaucracy. Easy to say, hard to understand. So let's just get a few reminders on what it is that we're talking about. Just remember, we are in the executive branch of government, and this is the excess of government that leads to the inefficiency of government. We typically, at the federal level, divide our bureaucracy into four, uno, dos, tres, cuatro categories. The largest are departments, and there are 15 of those. They are things like the State Department, the Treasury Department, Department of Defense, etc. They're the biggest, they're the baddest, they have the largest budgets and the most people in them. Next on the pecking order, we have something called independent agencies. So there are a lot of these. These are almost like little mini companies inside of the executive branch of government. They are entirely beholden to the president. So the president can hire and fire the leaders of them at will. Examples include places like the CIA, NASA, etc. Again, kind of like little companies inside the executive branch. Now, independent regulatory committees, remember you just heard the word regulatory. And so, somebody's making rules. So these are groups inside the executive branch that almost act like they're in the legislative branch because they make rules you have to follow. So the Federal Reserve makes rules on the money supply. FDIC makes rules on how you borrow money and have to insure banks, etc. The big difference with these is that once the president appoints the leader, subject to Senate approval, of course, he cannot remove them. Okay, so they have a little bit of independence from the president. They're making rules, hence independent regulatory committee. The last one, we have a government corporation. So these are like corporations. The only difference is since they're inside the government, they don't really have to make money. They don't have to make a profit. They can just keep on going and running a deficit all the time because we don't want to shut down something like the post office. All right, it's not like a business. They provide a service, but yet you can't really get rid of them if they don't turn a profit. PBS, Public Broadcasting Service, also providing Bert and Ernie to the world, the rest of Sesame Street. All right, more with bureaucracy. There's a couple laws thrown in there, historically speaking, the Pendleton Act and the Hatch Act. Pendleton Act talking about the merit system that's established, and the Hatch Act trying to kind of monitor people inside the executive branch, inside the bureaucracy from getting too involved with election activities. Now, you need to know your mandatory and discretionary spending with the federal budget. Remember, mandatory, you have to spend that money. Why? Because people have met the requirements. And so we call these entitlement programs, Social Security, food stamps, housing, etc. You've met the requirements, usually income-based, sometimes age-based, and so you are entitled to the money. You can't stop spending that money, federal government, unless you change the law, and it's politically dangerous to do that. Discretionary spending you can cut. About half of all discretionary spending is defense spending. Again, politically risky because you might be accused of being unpatriotic. You don't have these awesome like USA shirts like I got at Walmart for $4. I'm patriotic. Anyway, cut defense spending at your own risk. Also, don't forget about COLAs and indexing. They're the same thing. COLAs, cost of living adjustment. So automatically we are going to increase the amount of money that is spent on each of these programs every year just to keep up with inflation. Now, how about that James Wilson article on bureaucracy that Mr. Goldsmith is slightly infatuated with? We have to separate economic efficiency from government efficiency. Why? Because they're two different things. One thrives typically on single outcomes, economics, and getting things done quickly and cheaply. Government thrives on outcomes that really are hard to measure, like fairness and transparency and accountability. It's hard to put a number on those things. And so what that does is it slows down the entire process. Does it make it less efficient? That depends on your point of view. If government does everything that you want them to do, accomplishes all of their valued outputs, maybe they're efficient. Who knows? Okay? So make sure you know valued outputs, valued resources. Be able to apply them to a government situation. Be able to apply them to any situation. Just look at it and say, is this process efficient? Well, I don't know. What kind of resources, usually money and people, do you have to deal with the problem? What kind of outputs are you expecting from this? And remember, as soon as you increase the number of outputs, you are going to slow down the process. There is no doubt about it. Now, how can we keep the bureaucracy accountable? Ooh, lots of luck with that one. Well, here are some ways in which we can do it. The president, of course, can hire the top layer, usually a lot of the leadership involved in bureaucracy. So he does have some accountability there. Congress typically can decide whether or not they have money or how much money, the level of funding that they have. So that's a way in which Congress can do that. The media can watch over the bureaucracy to a